Hello, everybody. We will get started in just a few minutes. Posted a link to our agenda in the Zoom chat. If you could mark your attendance. If you have any opens you wanted to add, that'd be groovy. We'll get started in just a few minutes after the hour.
Excellent. Good morning from Northern Virginia.
Are you outside again? Or is it not quite warm enough for that yet?
It is not warm enough for that today, so we are inside. But I am accompanied by my goose.
Well, I am accompanied by my cat, who I'm sure would love to meet your goose.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that might not go well for the goose.
No, that probably would not. And Crobe is probably happy because I slipped in at least a few quick notes on the agenda. So,
Agenda items always make me happy.
all righty.
I put a link to the agenda in the chat. If you have any opens, please add them. We have a couple businessy things to talk about, but always room for opens. And I apologize, the formatting on the document is dorked up. I'll play around with that sometime in the middle of the week.
It's dorked up on most of the weird, I don't know why. It suddenly everybody becomes an H2, but they're not marked. Google Docs is doing a weird thing.
It is doing the thing for sure.
Yeah, that it is.
We'll get started in just 30 seconds. Everybody healthy over there, Zav? Good. Excellent.
Everything is back to normal.
Good, good, good. All right, folks, I posted a link to our agenda in the Zoom chat. If you have not yet, please mark your attendance. And if you have any opens you would like to add, first off, let me ask, is there anyone interested in helping us scribe the meeting notes? We have a couple of us that tap away, but if anyone's interested in helping, thank you, Vicki. Please feel free to participate in the note taking. Now, do we have any new friends that wanted to introduce themselves today and say hello to the group? All right, let us move along. As you have any items you want to add as opens, please go ahead and type away. Let's get a brief update from our it used to be called projects, things that used to be called member projects. If you would like to provide some updates, Mr. Wheeler's been busy tippy tapping away. You want to start, sir?
Sure. First of all, OpenSSF best practices badge, no change. See, that was easy, right? Yeah. We'll probably have some more changes and updates. For the fundamentals course, actually quite a bit going on. In spite of the fact that I've been completely overwhelmed with the Washington, D.C. thing, we've been working for a while on a big update of the SQL injection section, which has finally landed. It separates the whole concepts of parameterized versus prepared statements. In some libraries, those aren't different things, but in some systems, they very much are. So it was confusing using when for some folks. We also explain application versus DBMS side application libraries. All that stuff is merged in. You can see the pull request there. This is eventually going to get out to LF and edX to edX and to the LF training certification platforms. And someone's already offered to get some of this information over OWASP because while we were doing research, we found some problems that were just reported this year that really aren't noted elsewhere, but they're pretty significant. We have some draft early PRs from Olivia, and I'm very sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Galucci, I believe. Anyway, our IT student has started proposing pull requests. We thank her. We've already started reviewing them. And I'm going to do a teaser. We plan to have an announcement on OpenSSF Day about ways to further disseminate the fundamentals course materials. How, you ask? Well, come to OpenSSF Day and find out. Oh my goodness, did someone really do that?
It did. Excellent. Any questions for David on his updates or his tease to see if we could pull any more information out of him?
I have a question.
David?
Sure. Who's this?
This is Dave Russo. I don't know, my camera's
hi.
not working for some reason.
Huh, okay.
Anyway, so general question, David. If there are folks like some of my cohorts here we've been talking about who want to contribute some additional information to the fundamentals course, such as maybe threat modeling, how would we go about working on doing that?
Well, it turns out there's a GitHub repo, and you would file issues and pull requests on said things. Now, there is already a section about attack modeling, threat modeling, so presumably the information would go there. Now, we do have to be careful. The goal here is to not, this is not a data dump. This is not a learn everything possible. So we somehow have to, it's more than awareness, but the goal is to not know everything. So somehow we are going to have to thread the needle of what does a typical developer need to know at the very minimum. But that said, certainly we would love to hear improvements to the course. So yeah, that's how we do it. Now, once the pull requests are merged, there's a separate weird process to actually get them out. Oh my goodness, you have a face.
It worked. Shocking, I know.
Okay, you have a face. You probably have a body attached to it.
Believe it or not.
Believe it or not, I only live up down to here.
Yeah.
Everything else is
Doc.
simulated. So anyway, after it's merged, there's a weird, complicated process to get it from GitHub out to edX and to the LF training site. The good news is that it is not your problem. It is my problem, but it is not your problem. So, so really, from your point of view, it's the get it to GitHub, and once it's merged in on the main line, and it is the main branch. Then, as I said, there's some weirdness. So we have to be careful when we do a merge. We have to make sure we know each because we have to specially process every change. But that's fine.
And might I add, we have an item we're going to talk about that there is other avenues to add additional content, not necessarily to the edX and LF classes, but we're going to talk about an exciting new possible enterprise we all could, some of us could embark on that could add for specialized content. We could find ways to take additional specialized content.
Yeah.
So now that's my teaser.
Okay. Yeah, and we never anticipated that the fundamentals course was going to be the only possible course. I mean, that isn't even true now. I mean, you've got SKF right now. So yeah. Anyway, carry on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Dave? Either of the Daves. We have a fault tolerant Dave quota today. All right. Glenn or Spiros, do you have any updates you want to share with the group on your projects? I saw Glenn here.
Hi, sorry. No updates from us this week.
Oh, groovy. All right. Let us move on to our opens. As I teased moments ago, there is a new, exciting potential project we all could get to work on. If you were not aware, The foundation went to Washington, D.C. and met with members from the White House and other government officials to talk about a open source software security mobilization plan. This is a plan laid out in 10 parts that is proposed to create projects and work streams that improve different areas of open source security. So open source security. So we had sent that out to the mailing list, and I hope everyone's had a chance to look at the mobilization plan. Have we? See a couple head nods. All right. So I would like to talk with the group about, in particular, Stream 1, which is a deliver baseline secure software development education and certification to all work stream. And let's open up with, has anyone had a chance to read Stream 1? What are your thoughts about some of the ideas proposed in there? Vicky.
Education is a really broad thing.
Really?
So I know, right? Crazy. So I was wondering whether, we might scope that down to something a bit more achievable at first. Are we talking, say, community college education, university education, high school education, boot camp education? I mean, what are we talking?
I am very glad that you must be my straight woman again.
I am.
So before we move on, when we are done with our discussion today, I am going to propose to the group that this working group adopts Stream 1 as a special interest group, and any number of us could participate to do exactly what you question, Vicky, is refine that proposal, zero in on where we can add value and make plans for the future. So, if we think we want to have some education for all levels of education, layperson to graduate student, great. If we want to focus in on other stuff, that's what a subgroup of us could work on. And I will set up a series of dedicated meetings for us to continue to refine that if people are interested. I think I saw, did I answer your question, Ish?
Ish. I think it's probably a bit too early to have a specific answer, but I do want to make sure that it's something that we're considering, since, that's kind of a big thing.
Absolutely.
And I will also confess bias in this, since I'm vice chair of the Linux Professional Institute, and LPI is developing their own security certifications and the like, and they already have relationships with a large number of academic institutions of all varieties across the world. And so I think there's something that we could probably leverage there.
Nice. Excellent. I believe I saw Mr. Wheeler's hand next.
Yeah, so I actually led the discussion there, but led is probably the wrong term. I
Heard of the
I was
cats.
well, I didn't even heard them. I was there in the front trying to observe the next cat. But there's really, you need to look at the notes. And my thanks to the folks who took the notes. I did not, and it was good, helpful stuff. One thing that really struck me, and I copied it in here, is the separating of university K-12 boot camps. And although it's not really noticed, also, also continuing education, because a lot of folks, they're already out there. And so how do you reach these different groups of folks? I think there's many things that were noticed, but I think that's one of them.
Agreed.
Thanks.
All right. Eric, I saw your hand next.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be included on some of the discussions to put that Stream 1 together. And, some of the things we talked about early on is the variance in curriculum, not just college and potentially the training and certification that exists, but also bringing this to a broader group of people, some of the underrepresented groups within the industry, trade schools. You've taken this all the way down to potentially middle school curriculum. So realistically, thinking about this in a broader term, I 100% agree with Vicky that it, could be a hugely daunting thing to try and tackle it all at once. It really needs to be broken out into phases. But, my opinion, and certainly always up for debate, is that we can't limit the scope to, a specific area and say, okay, well, we'll tackle college because that seems like the most relevant. But I think the special interest group can solve that problem, and I want to be included in that, please, and want to contribute as much as I can there. But I think that's where we really need to define this a little bit further. Where I think the certifications are great, but do we start at the conference and special interest group kind of areas to get those broader categories, so that it's some of these like Girls Who Code and all these other groups, really ramped up on things where they may not get the same materials. That's just one of the ones I know off the top of my head, but certainly. So I think just in general, this is a hugely important initiative, and we have an opportunity, and hopefully Vicky's contacts and the other group can open some doors, but definitely include me in those conversations because I want to help out as much as I can.
Excellent. We'll absolutely not turn away any people interested in helping out. Arnaud.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify what you're talking about. That SIG you would create is for now to further define what needs to be done rather than actually doing it, right?
We would start off with refining the scope and goals,
Yeah.
and then eventually that group could move into either collecting, crafting content. It might spin off into little groups. Maybe we have a group focused on academia, a group focused on kind of the boot camp type thing. So we will figure out how we proceed afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense to me. Sounds good. Thanks.
Excellent. Any other thoughts? So it sounds like we've got several people that think it's a good idea. What about the rest of the group? Any other any counter opinions that think it's not something that's relevant to this group? Or
well, do we know of anybody else within OpenSSF who would want to claim that workstream 1?
I am unaware of anyone else at this time. Obviously, if we spin this up, everybody would be welcome, but this would be kind of the shepherding body, and we would report up to the TAC and whatnot through this group. All right. Sounds like this is a good idea, and the group generally is interested. We have some people that will donate some time to help us further this down the road. What I will do is I will create a doodle invite and send out to this mailing list and also the larger OpenSSF mailing list to solicit people's calendar time. And we'll see if we can find a good time with which to have this special interest group. Now, most likely this SIG will meet a little more frequently. We might do weekly meetings for a while until we get the scope better refined and laid out. And then we might, depending on what is needed, maybe people that are making content or training trainers or whatever, going out and petitioning academic bodies, they may meet more or less frequently, depending. That sound like a okay path forward?
Yeah, we should definitely inform the OpenSSF community that this group wants to do this, right? So we avoid other working groups considering doing something similar or that would overlap.
Yeah, I have not heard anyone throughout any of my conversations building the document or through the TAC, anyone has really mentioned any kind of interest aside from a couple of the folks here on the line. But that doesn't mean that people won't be willing to contribute if they're part of a different group. We would love to have,
of course,
all patches are welcome.
Yeah. It's not about being, excluding anyone. It's really more about coordinating and informing everybody. This is where we believe this work is happening. If you're interested, welcome to join. Don't start another effort somewhere else. This is really what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll get that note out hopefully today so we can maybe get a kickoff call for the SIG in the next week or two.
Sounds good.
Any additional comments before we move on to the next item?
Yeah, just naming wise, I'm hoping it won't be just named Stream 1 because all people
Oh.
hopefully
Our first point of
education
order will be
Stream
to
1.
create a name for ourselves, but probably the open source security education SIG, most like something along those lines.
Yeah, sounds good.
I actually strongly support David's point there because, you know, I'm involved in some standards organization where everything is by numbers and it's absolutely horrendous when you're a newcomer, you know. It's like, this is SC38 and it's like, what's that? Oh, it's cloud. Well, can't you just call it cloud then?
We could call it Team
Oh.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, absolutely.
we
We'll get
call
that.
it-
Then you're fine.
No, it's obviously it has to be the favorite SIG.
Of course.
Oh.
Good point,
Wow.
Vicky.
I like that. We'll might go with that.
Of course.
All right. So next point of order. Brian Bellendorf had sent a note to our mailing list, and we had a couple people chime in. I wanted to make sure that the whole group was okay with it. We'd had an opportunity to discuss it. There is a proposal to create another SIG that would be housed underneath this working group focused on developer best practices. But this particular SIG would be focused on the China region, because there's a belief that through technical, cultural, and language barriers, that group probably would benefit from some dedicated, focused attention. And so the proposal, as you saw Brian lay out, is to create a SIG that would periodically report back to us or collaborate with this group here for assistance trying to create materials or help that particular open source development community. So I wanted to make sure this group was aware of that proposal, and if we had any questions or concerns that we could talk through that right now. The floor is open. Marta.
Thanks. I still have a question because I didn't understand if we are aiming for a SIG in English or in Chinese.
Chinese.
Okay.
It'll be Chinese Mandarin would be the language, and you would have folks that understand the language and can speak it, would help guide any developers that participated in the SIG there.
Okay, then my experience is that it requires really frequent reporting back and forth and communication between two groups so that they do not become completely separate.
Agreed. And I guess there is a gentleman that is located in Hong Kong that has an affiliation with the OpenSSF or Linux Foundation. And I believe he got nominated to be the SIG lead and coordinator. So ideally that person would be our conduit between the two groups. Unless we had any people that had Chinese linguistic skills were interested in participating.
So if I may add a little bit here,
Please.
because I have, I share some background with Brian with the Hyperledger where we both work, and some of this is actually can be as simple as the communication tools we use. People in China can't really use Google Docs, for instance, just as a starter. And same is, instead of Slack, they use WeChat, which most of us don't use. And so there are things that are so simple like this that just makes it easier for them to talk to one another. And it has been said before, it can be the language, but I've had colleagues at least who said it's not often the language that's the most, the biggest barrier. It's really more like time zones and their focus and there's a whole group of things. And I mean, our experience for Hyperledger is we set that up and we were not too sure it would work out. Obviously, we had similar concerns about, we create a bubble that's disconnected, but it has worked very well. We have not had any problems with coordination. There is always some people who actually are managing to act as a liaison, if you will. And we have by far benefited more than anything else from this. So I am with Brian on this. I think the experience we have had, encouraged me to say, yes, let's do this.
Any other thoughts or comments? Sammy.
Yes, well, I think great initiative, but maybe just something to consider is ensuring alignment, right? So different meetings in different language with different tools. I think one of our biggest challenges is ensuring, we're all rowing in the same direction. It's just something to consider how we're going to do that through checkpoints or, yeah.
It's a very good point. We'll need to figure out process and meeting checkpoints. If anyone is interested in help providing some type of liaison function, even if it's meeting with the SIG leaders, there'll be some additional potential time commitments for us to sync up with those folks to make sure, and also having, as Arnon mentioned, the tools to be able to share data back and forth will be something that needs worked out.
Yeah, I would love to take that on. I'm not Mandarin bilingual, but maybe if I can get it started until someone with the right language skills steps in.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, sir. And I'll note my concern for the idea was the fact that it was isolated to one country. I think there's potentially a lot of developers in every region that could benefit from these materials, and if we had some vehicle to share with everybody in the APAC region or Europe or Latin America, I think that would be I feel that would be a better means, but I think this is an interesting way we could potentially kickstart it, try it out. And while the tool like WeChat isn't a tool we could use other places, we could at least potentially use this as a template to spin up other SIGs that are focused in on different areas around the globe. I saw Vicky's hand first.
Sorry, got distracted by little beeps from Marta's side. There was an individual on the Hash General channel this morning asking whether members from Africa were welcome. And I think this would be a great opportunity to reach out to them and say, yes, please join the BEST working group, the best practices working group. It's right there in the name. And then maybe we could get them to start with an African SIG, because they really did seem quite, they had experience, and it seemed like something maybe we could get going there.
I missed that, but actually I know a gentleman that helps with Africa CERT, and he might be a person we could deputize to help out. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, and I've got a number of contacts now through LPI. We do a lot of work in Africa.
Nice. Excellent. David.
Yeah, so too quick. I actually did reply specifically about the hey, why China specifically, and Brian's reply, and I think he just replied to everybody. It was basically, I mean, it's not that there's a moral opposition, but he thought that China in particular was one of the most challenging, and therefore was one that needed help the most or first or whatever, because of things like the Great Firewall and so on. As far as Africa, I mean, obviously, hey, more the merrier. I will quickly note that the best practices badge, we actually have a start at a Swahili translation, but our Swahili translator Well, I'll call him out now. He basically has stopped contributing recently, so I will shake my finger because I mean, I may have his pay, with the zero on top. I don't know what the new number is, but 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 we would love more. Translation work is actually, I think, one of the more obvious for really worldwide participation. There's a number of languages. We've got a lot of materials where just translating them would be a huge improvement. I realize that doesn't solve all interaction problems. Things like can't access Google Docs, which is, to my knowledge, that's a China problem. I don't think that's an Africa problem, but certainly there are challenges in many places.
So with regards to Swahili, what we find at LPI is that it's not actually necessary. It's not even the primary language in most of the regions. So, and they all speak whatever colonial language quite well, very fluently. And so while we do have a number of resources translated into Swahili, our tests, it turns out, don't have to be.
Yeah, well, we support English, we support French, we support many other languages, but I am not opposed to adding more translations.
Oh, absolutely, more the merrier.
Well,
Everyone in the pool.
And to put a blatant plug in for Stream One again, one of the ideas we had was more localization of the content, whether existing or generated content, is to try to find ways to get this out to different native speakers.
Yeah, somebody actually jokingly asked me about Klingon, and I said, sure, as long as somebody's willing to do the work. I don't think that's our first choice, but there's a lot of people around the world who speak different languages. It'd be great to support.
That'll be like a second or third wave, right next to Elvish.
Excellent.
All right, any other commentary around the proposed China developer best practices, SIG, kind of being shepherded by this group here? So it feels like we're okay that I can reply back to Brian with an official, yes, we're good to help out and try to assist and set some exploratory meetings in the near future to talk through that a little more. That sound acceptable? All right, I will reply to Mr. Bellendorf in a little bit. Scrolling. 10:30. So we had talked about next item. Do we want to focus the balance of our time on the one pager for existing guidelines for developing and distributing secure software, something that might be really useful translated into Mandarin? We'll talk about that next. Sure thing, Pearl. All right. We'll post a link in chat. Let us open up existing guidelines document. See, we are still just short of our goal of having it a one pager. But that's okay. So let's jump in. Do we want to adjudicate comments? Does anyone have any thoughts they wanted to share off the bat? How would we like to proceed to get this document wrapped up and moved forward? You're on mute, David, if you're talking.
Yeah, okay, let's do it unmuted this time. So I think for many of us, we were totally overwhelmed by the gathering in Washington, D.C. So at least for me, yeah, exactly. I just, for those of you who didn't know, I had a 10-hour Zoom meeting with Brian, just to turn all the various pieces into some flowing whole. so I have not really had time to work on this, and I think that's the truth for many other folks. So I would propose let's just keep working on this for the next 2 weeks and revisit this when we've had a chance to actually really take some work at it. I don't think it'll take that this is not a multi-year endeavor, but I think many of us have been too distracted. Speaking
So
of
you're
this,
proposing kicking it down the road to RSA week.
absolutely. I won't be at RSA, so I'm fine with that.
I get to be a booth babe at RSA, so it'll be great. Looking forward to it.
Oh man.
Uh,
Oh, the imagery. I don't like it.
and then if we push it another 2 weeks, that'll be the open source summit week.
I realize we can't fully win, but I still think at least giving us 2 more weeks.
I kid because I love. Vicky, you had a question or comment?
Can we perhaps do some of this a bit more asynchronously then?
Yeah, that is very much what I'm proposing. Next 2 weeks, let's try to make improvements async, and then presumably next meeting, some folks will have more, hey, we can't resolve this async. Let's talk through this. Okay.
I think that's a phenomenal idea. Any opposition to that idea? No. All right.
So do we all have homework?
Yes.
So we will have homework of please, everyone take a look at the one-page guide for developing secure software. And if you have time, there's a companion document. I think it was around like CI/CD, right, Dave?
No, it was on evaluating software. Basically, one is developing, and the other is before you bring it in, how do you evaluate it?
So let's focus on the developing, get our comments in there. And if you have time to look at the evaluating, that'd be kind of icing on that cake.
Yeah, production, ingest.
So do we have any topics that the group would like to discuss, or should we adjourn?
I guess, was there anything on that on the developing that people thought was critical to discuss today? Oh, wait a minute. You posted a link, but that's not the one pager link. That's the list of all existing guidance, and that's many pages.
Oh,
Thank you, David. I was going to ask.
Yeah, that's
I posted
I
it
was
now.
like, this is nowhere near one page. So
no. Yeah, that's right. It's the wrong link.
Wrong link.
that looks better. Thank you.
So please look at the one-ish pager and provide your feedback during the week. And if we need to, we will go through and adjudicate comments at our next call. So are there any other topics we wanted to discuss today?
Just one comment. I mean, you cannot just change the font size to reach the one page goal.
Well, I mean,
There's a limit.
see, now as soon as you say that, immediately I'm gonna have to say challenge accepted, right?
6-point font.
Six. You can go fractional. Point font.
Oh no. 6.5.
Yeah.
microscope.
But I kid. You're absolutely right. And by the way, I believe that the only way we can achieve something that isn't 1-point font is by not trying to list everything in this directly, but instead linking out
References.
to the other materials. Right. But so basically, this is that. If you look at a pyramid, this is the top. This is the top piece that brings you to everything else. But for a lot of folks who don't have the background, having that here's where to, start here doc, which is, I view what this really is I think going to be really valuable.
Agreed. Any other thoughts or comments? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time and conversation today. You will see a note from me with a doodle invite to try to find some time for the first of the SIGs. And then please also do your homework and review the one-page document, provide any last feedback on that. And you will also see a note to Mr. Bellendorf talking about the China developer SIG. And hopefully that will be the first of many potential expansion opportunities to get our content in the hands of developers. Thanks all. Enjoy your day. We will talk with you all soon.
All right, thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you all.